Ooh, Quita, that was a tough one, huh?
Absolutely, it was. It was a tough one.
We got to over the post game show though, so here we go. Incoming in shortly. All right, well. All right, well, welcome to another episode of CHGO Sky. I'm your host, Stephen Prejean Garner. Obviously, I have here with me as well as my co-host for today's episode, Quita, also known as Quita Love Sports. Quita, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, but a little bummed about the game we just saw.
Yeah. That was a tough one. Obviously, the Sky weren't playing the best basketball in terms of record coming into this one, even before the obvious All-Star break that just took place. But I think the thing that for people that were watching it transparently, it was obvious that the team turned multiple corners with their game-by-game process in the last maybe 4 to 5 games leading up to the All-Star break-in. Like I mentioned, though it did not result in wins and losses, newsflash for the people that only pay attention to wins and losses, you can still play incrementally better basketball if you are not winning games. Now, obviously, for tonight's game, that does not apply because their game process was not good. Individual players did not play well. Lineups did not play well. And you see the result that came from it. So we can have conversations and contextualize things appropriately as long as we're assessing from the right foundation point. And I think the right foundation point for tonight's game is that they simply just were not good. Comprehensively, individually, execution-wise, game plan-wise, everything was just not good in this one. Quita, quick thoughts off the top of the head for tonight's game.
I mean, I would say it basically fell apart with 3 minutes left to go in the second quarter. Initially to start off the game, the Sky were actually okay, but what we have seen a lot of times is when the Sky have one turnover, it turns into multiple turnovers in a small period of time. It's like when it rains, it floods when it comes to turnovers, and the Chicago Sky just could not get around their simple mistakes. Yes, the Minnesota Lynx, fantastic defensive team. However, just like the last time we played the Minnesota Lynx at home, we saw a significant amount of the turnovers be unforced errors by the Chicago Sky.
Yeah, the unforced errors part in particular is what stands out most for me as well. If we want to just kind of transition from the intro to getting into the weeds of things, I mean, the turnovers. They had 21 in today's game. That just for 98, 99% of games that you play, if you have that many turnovers, you're probably not going to win the game. And especially when you're going up against the Minnesota Lynx team that you already have minimal margin for error over the course of the game because of how sharp they are with execution and especially in the important pockets of games. You talked about for this one, the inflection point of this one was really the close to the second quarter. We're not even talking about them in the clutch. We're not talking about them on final possessions. We're not even talking about Minnesota in after timeout situations. We're simply talking about at a point in the game where if the Sky closed the half well, they go into halftime with a 7 to 10 point lead, which changes the complexion of the entire game versus what actually happened, which is turnover after bad foul after shot clock violation. And like you said, when it rains, it floods. When it rains, it pours. It's not just that their mistakes are one-offs. It feels like when the Sky have mistakes on the offensive end, it snowballs and domino effects into multiple. And that multiple, because of the barrage nature of it, naturally puts their defense in conflict. And if you're playing bad offense and not scoring while also conceding extra possessions, extra shots on goal for your opponents, and again, you're going against an elite offense, not just an elite defense in the Minnesota Lynx. You go into a game saying if they take 9 more shots than you, you probably lost that game. Also, if you have almost 20 turnovers more than your opponents, that's never going to get it done either. And I feel like they will succumb to a lot of issues in that latter end of the second quarter and throughout the rest of the game, largely because of things that are very controllable in terms of turnovers, if we're speaking to that firstly and in particular.
Yeah, and it seemed like it started off with just general frustration. And the Sky is not the only team that does that in the WNBA, where you get a couple of calls that don't go your way, and all of a sudden you're more focused on complaining to the refs. You're upset, which then starts to impact your play, and you start making mistakes that you wouldn't normally make because you're already in your head, because you're already upset about what the ref did and yada, yada, yada. Like, for example, with was it around 3 minutes left to go in the second quarter, where that was when Kamilla got her second foul. And then it felt like that was the inflection point that just started to compound errors on both the offensive and defensive end for the Chicago Sky, because a little bit of overall frustration in terms of a key player in your rotation going out earlier than you expected her to. And I believe it was 2 fouls. Anyway, she goes out, and then we see Maddie Westbelt come in. And Maddie, I gotta say, I thought she played pretty decent. I thought she played some pretty good minutes, and maybe we'll get to the positive later, but that was a slight positive there. But I do think that Kamilla going out when she did, with a couple minutes left to go in the second quarter, that really did turn the tide, where the Minnesota Lynx just barrage of offense, and the Chicago Sky just backpedal.
Yeah. With the margin for error that's non-existent at this point for the Sky against a team like Minnesota, especially, if you see a Sky team operating without, obviously, Courtney Vandersloot for the rest of the season, obviously without Ariel Atkins in this moment, I think she's day-to-day, if I remember correctly. Hopefully that's a whole lot sooner on that day-to-day than later. And with Michaela Onyenwere also not being in the lineup for the team, that's 3 starters, starting level, if not all 3 starters for the team. The margin for error, in addition to being on the road and going up against that team in particular, who still to this point has not lost a game at home yet. Yeah, you have all of these things that you're working up against. You have to be very clean and very, very sharp with your process. And any slippage from a key cog in Kamilla Cardoso being in foul trouble, or Angel Reese having one of those bad turnover games where it's not just the turnovers, but it's the live ball ones that put the defense in compromise, because there's literally no defense for a live ball turnover. And against a team like Minnesota that gets great shot quality and more possessions than not, if you concede an advantage that is transition, you're going to be in for a very long night. When you get those 2 types of instances from those 2 players in particular, it's hard for everybody else to find a rhythm, and especially, again, the timing of the turnovers. You go back to the game before the All-Star break with the Minnesota Lynx, the Monday before All-Star break, literally a little over a week ago. That game was relatively closely played by the Sky.
Yeah.
Again, untimely turnovers, and it's you want to credit Minnesota because their defense is good, their pressure is what it is, they have the individual personnel that they do. Their defensive shell is very unique as well. But some of the turnovers that we've seen from the Sky against this Lynx team, pretty much in the entire season series, which the Lynx just won 3-1 after today's game, it feels more so like the Sky, and it's more controllable things that they're not controlling as far as the turnovers that they're conceding to Minnesota, than it has been Minnesota proverbially speeding them up or taking them out of the rhythm of their offense. That portion of it comes, but the inflection point is by kind of self-inflection from the Chicago Sky. Those things you have to control. You just have to be better with.
I mean, I completely agree. The thing about the Sky is because they don't have that steady Freddy like point guard in Courtney Vandersloot on the court, you know, there tends to be a little bit of rushing. And I'm, you know, not to say that when Courtney Vandersloot was playing early on in the season, this guy also had a turnover issue. So it's not to say that all of these turnover ridden games are because of them not having a point guard, but I do think they were getting it under control, and now the turnover situation is becoming more of a thing because from what I'm seeing, it's like they're just rushing a little bit. Like they're like slightly, oh, here's an awesome pass, and it's a little bit too late, or it's like a little bit too zippy of a pass to the person they're getting it to, and it's like these little mistakes that, like, in the grand scheme of things, good ideas in terms of some of the passes that they're trying to do. However, when you're just a little bit off on that pass, you're playing against an elite defensive team, and they're going to take advantage of your mistakes, and especially, as you said, live ball mistakes. It's not like it's not like most of these turnovers are just the ball going out of bounds or offensive foul or something like that. It's live ball where Minnesota's going right back, and they're getting great opportunities to score because the Sky are on the back foot. And these turnovers, like, they got to get it together. But again, it's not like I see the idea that they're trying, like I see the passes that they're trying to make. It's just slightly off. And at some point, they either have to stop those passes or you got to start connect them. Because the idea is there. It's just execution not great. And when you have Ariel Atkins out, when you got, again, as you said, 3 starters out, it compounds.
Yeah. And I failed to mention, but I want to remind you all that we're coming to you live for this episode of CHGO Sky. I want to remind you also to visit sunnyside.shop for bright buys every day, including 50% off your first 3 online purchases. Enter promo code HICHGO at checkout to qualify. Exclusions apply. Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary, bright buys every day. And then also want to make sure I note that is only for 21 years or older members. And you also have to be an Illinois medical card holder. But yes, Keita, to your point, the turnovers. This is, by my count, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the 5th game this season where the Chicago Sky have had 20 or more turnovers.
A good stat.
I'll go ahead and say I'm sure you can guess what the record is in those games.
All L's.
Yes. Not good. And just generally speaking for the Sky this season, when they have 16 or more turnovers in a game, and they've done so now 12 times, they have not won, or excuse me, they won one of those games, and that was a game that they won against Minnesota on July 12th. So they are 1-11 in the 12 games where they have 16 or more turnovers this season. I don't know what the number is league-wide in terms of teams that have 16 or more turnovers or even 20 or more turnovers in more than a handful of games this season, but I imagine the Sky are higher up on that list, if not the number one in terms of teams with that many styles of games over the course of the season. Again, obviously context matters, and we want to make sure we note the injuries that they are working through. But at the same time, even with those players not being available, I feel like a handful of turnovers that we're seeing are turnovers that they certainly are capable of mitigating, whether it be Angel and Kamilla being in better position to set a screen, or the ball handlers being better with the timing of that, waiting for their big to get set before they decide to come off of the screen. Whether it be one turnover we saw where Angel just kind of lost her footing and it wasn't too much pressure on her and she kind of backpedaled some. Maybe she just lost her balance. But again, the timing, the moments of these turnovers and how it's leading to points for your opponents. I feel like because it's the plot of this episode, we got right to it. But You mentioned it. I think I may have mentioned it earlier. The Sky won the first quarter. Like, I don't want that to get lost in everything as we kind of get into the game quarter by quarter. They won the first quarter of this game, and it wasn't by just barely squeaking by. They won it 24-18. And I feel like if they close the first quarter better, that's a quarter that they should win by closer to double digits than it was ultimately what it was. Krita, what kind of stood out for you in the first quarter of this game in particular?
Well, when it comes to the Sky, the thing that works great for them is not only using the post players as a scoring mechanism, like getting the ball to Kamilla and Angel, but also in a way using them as sort of a decoy of sorts to get the guards good looks. And in the first quarter, we saw Beck Allen get I believe she had a 3-point shot in that one. We saw Kamilla get to the rim. We saw opportunities for both Kamilla and Angel in the post. Now, did they always capitalize on those? No, but we saw aggressiveness. We saw the team deciding, we're going to focus on our bigs and have that lead to opportunities for our guards. And it was successful in that first quarter. We saw Angel get to the free throw line. We saw lots of layups in that one. We saw some really good minutes, I would say, by Haley Van Lith early on in that first quarter. And it looked good for the Chicago Sky because, again, you're starting the game kind of through your bigs to lead to opportunities from the three-point line for your guards. And that was a huge success. But again, eventually turnovers become an issue. But in the first quarter, the Sky make mistakes, but at the same time, their aggressiveness from everybody, I believe everybody who touched the floor in the first quarter for the Chicago Sky scored. And that's a big deal for a team that is injury ridden, that has a lot of players who are not normally getting in that early, getting some good minutes. And so overall, good quarter by the Chicago Sky. The problem is being able to be consistent in that effort and limiting the compounding of turnovers. If they're able to do that all 4 quarters, it's a different ballgame. The Sky still might lose, but not to this level. It really was the second quarter and them sort of losing it that kind of opened the floodgates for the Lynx. However, first quarter, really good job for the Chicago Sky. A couple of threes, really good looks in the post. But it really does start with both Kamilla and Angel down low.
I think you made some great points there. Just for context purposes, speaking to the first quarter, the Chicago Sky won that, like I mentioned, 24-18. That first quarter, they shot 9 for 20 from the field, 45%. They went 3 for 6 from deep, 2 for 2 in particular from Rachel Banham, who I'll be getting to shortly. They also out-rebounded the Minnesota Lynx 14-7. So they doubled up the Lynx in the first quarter. The Sky also had 6 offensive rebounds, 3 from Angel Reese, 2 from Camila Cardoso, and also 1 from Kia Nurse. To Quita's point, everybody that touched the floor in the first quarter for the Chicago Sky indeed did score. We got the leading scorer was Rachel Banham with 6, those 2 threes that she knocked down, like I mentioned. Angel Reese had 5, Kamilla had 4. We also saw 3 from Rebecca Allen. We saw 2 from Elizabeth Williams. We saw 2 from Kia Nurse, and we also saw 2 from, like Quita also mentioned, Haley Van Lith towards the latter end of the quarter. So as far as scoring production, they got what they needed. That in turn allowed for their defense to be set more consistently than not. However, they did have 5 turnovers in the first quarter. They had 2 more in the second than they did in the first. So that 5 seems mild compared to the 7. But even if you have 5 turnovers on average per quarter, that still gets you to 20 over the course of a game. And again, we talked about the number for the Sky when they get 16 or more turnovers, being 1 and 11. That's not gonna get it done. You just have to be better. But again, keeping it on track with the first quarter before we get to our first break. On the Lynx side of things, they had a very slow start, and I think we both mentioned it. The Sky held them to 6 for 16, from the field in the first quarter. That's 37.5%. Minnesota themselves, a team that doesn't typically have this issue, did have 4 turnovers of their own. So the Sky did lose the turnover margin in the first period, but the fact that it was only by 1 and the fact that they also took more shots, 4 more shots on goal in the first quarter than Minnesota did, naturally by way of the offensive rebounds that they garnered, that's 6. That puts you in a position to where you have some margin for error. So if you're doubling up your opponents in rebounds, especially on the offensive glass, which you're getting extra possessions from, and you're kind of scoring somewhat efficiently from the field, that gives you some margin for error with your turnovers. But you can't have the turnovers and the rebound and not hitting to the effect that it did in the first quarter throughout the rest of the game, in addition to the defensive slippage. You have to pick one. You just can't have all 3 against a team like Minnesota. But real quick, and then I'll get to Quita before we get to our first ad break. Rachel, Big Mama, Banham. I'll let you speak on it first. I'll get to it, and then I'll take us to the break. Let's do it that way.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. So Rachel Banham, I have really enjoyed her play in the last several games. I would say like closer to 8-ish games, the last 8-ish games. Rachel Banham has had more production, which is absolutely huge for her. She has been inserted in the starting lineup, has played the sort of PG role for this team. And while it's not perfect, while she still does get some turnovers and whatnot, I do like her ability to just knock down the 3. The only thing, though, is that I wish that the Chicago Sky actually ran more plays for Rachel Banham. Like, when Rachel Banham gets hot, we all know she's nuclear, right? We saw it last year, at bits and spurts when she was with the Connecticut Sun. We've seen it a little bit this year as well, more lately in terms of just production that she's getting. I'm not exactly sure the stats of her in the last several games, but there definitely has been a increase in her offensive production. The only thing is, I just wish there was more actual plays ran for her to get more opportunities, because we know she can knock down some shots. And I just want to see more of that as a structure and less of Rachel Banham trying to play PG. Because sure, she can do it okay, I guess. But Rachel Banham to me is way a bigger threat in terms of shooting than she is passing. And so Tyler Marsh has to figure out ways to have Rachel off ball, run her off of screens, run some plays truly for Rachel to get her to those 3-point shots, because we saw it in the first quarter. Like, she can knock down shots. She just needs consistent open looks.
Well said. Well said. More on Rachel Banham, more on the Chicago Sky, and more on this game after this break. All right, Quita, can I tell you a little bit about Sunnyside?
Say it.
What is Sunnyside? That's a great question you might ask. Sunnyside is a cannabis dispensary, and it's your home for judgment-free cannabis shopping. A place where all kinds of visitors are welcome to explore, discover, and purchase a wide array of high-quality products. Sunnyside has literally everything you need to elevate your summer. What are some of the amazing features that make the brand or the product as awesome as it actually is? It's quite literally your one-stop shop for all of your cannabis needs. Sunnyside has an expertly curated menu with over 100 strains of different types of cannabis. Plus, they make it super easy and efficient for you to order online, as well as do so with the in-store pickup. Sunnyside is Illinois' favorite dispensary by far, with locations in the city, as well as or in addition to Wrigleyville and River North, as well as in the suburbs like super far down south in Champaign, as well as in South Beloit, and so much more. If you're starting out, Sunnyside has experts to help guide you in brands that they know you'll love, as well as things like Good News and Mindy's. If you're a pro, they also got you covered with over 100 strains on the menu, as well as new ones added daily, all expertly curated, as well as advisors from the wellness staff having specific types of picks to add to the collection as well. You want to make sure you visit sunnyside.shop for bright buys every day, including 50% off your first 3 online purchases. Again, 50% off your first 3 online purchases. Enter code HICHGO, like I mentioned at the top of the show, at your checkout for the to qualify for that. Exclusions apply. Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary, bright buys every day, only for 21 plus or IL medical card holders. Also want to make sure I know with Sunnyside that for existing users, if you use promo code CHGO50, you can also get 50% off of one Cresco Labs brand item. Make sure you stop that, rewind it, copy and paste it, and go get your needs. Also want to tell you, Quita, a little bit about Cash App. Quita, do you use Cash App?
I don't, but everybody I know uses Cash App, so I need to get on it.
Yes, allow for me to kind of steer you on this one. So the Chicago Sky, with the Chicago Sky, Cash App, in addition to for everybody on the individual purposes, is very, very safe. It's also a very fast way to send money. And you can also receive and transfer money to family and friends with the snap of a finger. Instant setup. How quickly can you get involved, and how easy is it to get started? You literally, all you have to do is just put your phone number or email in. No bank account information needed at all. And I can also tell you a little bit how Cash App helps to save time for you. I used to run a flag football team when I was in Chicago, captain of a team for multiple years, won a couple championships. That's beside the point. But to run an efficient team, you have to be able to efficiently receive funds and kind of have that to put forth to the league to make sure your team is eligible to actually play and to kind of stay on task with that. I found for me the easiest way to do so, regardless of what other people might have suggested, for me was Cash App. The fact that it so easily and so quickly allows for you to make these transactions at the snap of a finger again, and to get your job done, get your business done, whatever it is you're doing, whether you're with friends, whether you're with teammates, whether you're with coworkers, and everybody's trying to chip in to help pay for whatever the bill was when you went out to eat. They make it easy, and I simply love using Cash App because it's fast, it's safe, and it just makes life way, way, way less stressful. You don't have to worry about waiting multiple days for the money to get to you. You don't have to worry about different bugs and things like that. All you have to do is just sign up, like I said, using an email address or your phone number, no bank account needed, and you can just simply make things happen in a super quick fashion. Make sure you tap in with Cash App. Are you convinced, Quita?
I am. I need to download the Cash App app.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. And for anybody that maybe wasn't before, I hope that by the time I get done with this ad read, you do tap in with Cash App, because for a limited time only, new Cash App users can use our exclusive code to earn some additional cash. For real, there's no catch. Just download Cash App and sign up. Use our exclusive referral code CHGO Sky in your profile. Send $5 to a friend within 14 days, and you'll get $10 dropped right into your account. Again, send $5 within 14 days of signing up, and you get $10 back right into your account. Sounds simple and easy, and I know everybody that's listening to me loves to make money. So let's get to it. Terms and conditions apply, but that's money. And then that's Cash App. So you want to make sure you tap in with that. Okay.
Wait, hold on, Steven. Hold on.
Talk to me.
You just sneaked in the fact that you won a couple of championships playing flag.
Nah, see.
So I just love how you just snuck that in. You're like, okay, we're not gonna go through that. But I did win a couple of championships.
Yeah. We made some things happen back home before I moved out here to the desert in Phoenix. But yeah, like I said, my main reason for bringing it up was because of Cash App. We don't get to those championships without Cash App, because it made the process of getting involved in the league by season just that much more easy. So shout out to Cash App, shout out to flag football. My little heyday days that kind of set the tone for everything. We had some fun, but back to Big Mama, Rachel Banham. So I had a tweet that I put out a little bit earlier today, just kind of zooming in on her success that she saw from deep coming into tonight's game. So I think it was since June 22nd, which made it exactly a month ago since she entered the starting lineup for the Chicago Sky. So a month's worth of games. It was 10 games played coming into today. Again, these numbers are specific to prior to tip-off for tonight's game. She was averaging 11 and some change, almost 12 points a game. But what I want to make sure we pay close attention to, call her a sniper, You call her a laser. All of those things that are adjacent to or adjectives for someone being very good at shooting the basketball. You can look it up in a dictionary, and she's one of the many names for the W this season that will show up there. Her three-point shooting ranks since she got into the starting lineup, again, the last 10 games excluding today, she was shooting 41.3% from deep. Quita, do you know where that ranked in terms of the entire league, shooting 41.3% from deep over these last 10 games?
I gotta guess top 5 or maybe even top 2. Like that's really good.
So you want to go with the top 5 variant, or you want to go with top 2?
I'm gonna say top 2.
You smart and you correct. So she was literally tied for second at that 43.1% from deep. She also made 28 threes over the last 10 games coming into today's game. Again, since becoming a starter. Quita, do you know where that ranked amongst the league ranks?
What ranks? Can you repeat that again?
28 three-pointers made total over these last 10 games.
Well, the rest of the league has kind of been in the 3-point slumps. I'm gonna guess number 1.
She was real close. Ryan Howard just barely edged her out over this stretch of games, but she's second with 28 threes made. I got a couple more on the fly kind of trivia questions for you as we kind of detail just how great Rachel Banham has been. 65 total 3-point attempts over these last 10 games coming into tonight's game. You mentioned the slump. Where do you think that ranks for her in terms of 3-point attempts at 68 over this last 10?
Where she rank in terms of the entire league?
There's a trend with the two that preceded this one that will put you right in the ball. Correct.
The other one.
Correct. I got 2 more for you, and then I'll take you off the hot seat. So 2.8 3-pointers made over the 10 games prior to tonight's game. And obviously she knocked down 2 more in this one. In terms of the league ranks for her, that 2.8 3-pointers made over this 10-game stretch, where do you think that ranks in terms of the entire league?
Top 3? I'm going to say 1. But I don't know. Top 3.
She's flirting with 1 in all of these. She's actually third in 3-point makes on average per game at 2.8. Nothing to scoff at in any capacity because there's a stretch of consistency that comes with that on the volume of attempts. And speaking to the volume of attempts, to close this kind of hot seat trivia right here, 6.5 3-point attempts over these last 10 games for Rachel. Now, this is the number that's going to rank lower than the others that we talked about, her being basically top 3 or better. But she was top 10 with this one. I will give you that too. Where do you think she ranked with her 6.5 3-point attempts per game in this last 10 games?
Let me say 7.
Perfect. You got it. Yep. You got it. You got it. So again, just to recap trivia, 43.1% from deep for Rachel Banham over the last 10 games prior to tonight's game. That ranks tied for second in the league. Her 28 3-pointers made was second in the league over these last 10 games. The 65 3-point attempts also ranked second. She was third in terms of 3-pointers made on average per game over these last 10 with 2.8 made. And then she was also at 6.5 3-point attempts, which ranked 7th on average per game over the last 10 games, again, prior to tonight's game. So Rachel Banham, an absolute sniper, an absolute laser, all of those things you want to say about a shooter, she embodies it. And to your point that you made, which I think leads to a larger point, you have to find ways to get more efficient shots for her. However, my kind of caveat with that, and this is a trend that we can talk about in a similar ilk that we did with the turnovers, when they get to 16 or more, the record significantly nosedives for them. You also can't beat the Minnesota Lynx if you only have 12 assists in the game. So
yes,
the inverse of that 12 assists is 21. That's the amount of turnovers they had. You cannot have that negative of an assist to turnover ratio and expect to contend with a team like Minnesota in an individual game basis or in a season series.
Yeah, it's a struggle because, like, yes, as I said earlier, like Rachel Banham, like, yeah, she can knock down some shots, but the Chicago Sky don't have a actual point guard. I mean, actually they do. They have Mariah Jefferson. She's just sitting on the bench. she's not getting in the game. Why exactly that is, especially because Mariah Jefferson is now healthy, I'm not exactly sure. I definitely need to ask that to Tyler Marsh. But basically, the Chicago Sky, we don't really have someone who can do a ton of facilitating from the guard point of view. Like Angel Reese has shown this year to be way more of a facilitator, and that's fantastic. But from the guard perspective, Rachel Banham had 0 assists in today's game, and she was the starting point guard, right? Then you bring in Haley Van Lith, and to Haley Van Lith's credit, she was passing the ball pretty well, right? She had I believe 4 assists in today's game. That's really good for a rookie coming off the bench in limited minutes. However, from the starters' perspective, you need way more assists. Kia Nurse 1 assist today. Beck Allen 1 assist. Rachel 0. Angel 3. Kamilla 2. Like, that's not good enough, because you don't need so many opportunities where you are creating your own shot. The Chicago Sky and most teams, I would say, in the WNBA, they're at their best when shots are created for them, when they're getting opportunities directly from a pass, running off of screens, getting a good pass and going up for a shot, right? Or in transition, getting a really good pass and making the shot. Like, there's so much of like potential easy work that the Sky could be doing in terms of facilitating that they're not, which leads to tough bucket after tough bucket, and leads to misses, and leads to, trying to get back in transition and playing some defense. Like, assisting is important, and it really does matter. And the Chicago Sky, since Courtney Vandersloot has been out, not only are you dealing with a turnover issue, you're dealing with a lack of ball movement, lack of good ball movement on offense, which is not a recipe for success.
Yeah, it's not. And to that point, especially because they played Minnesota in like 4 of the last 5 or 3 of the last 4 games.
Yeah, it's like the last 2 weeks, it's only been Minnesota, it seems like.
Yeah, it's definitely what it feels like. But to that point, because Minnesota's defense is so good, I want to kind of take a moment to credit them and then bring it back to what it is I'm getting to. If I had a chance to speak with Cheryl Reeve about a little over a week ago, maybe a week and a half ago, and I asked her about their defense, because their defense, if you watch the league as a whole, their defense looks different. And it's for one, because of the personnel, for 2, because of the coaching, but also the execution of game plan. Their approach to defense is unique compared to other teams, where other teams would be a little bit more precautionary with some of the things that they go about doing. Minnesota's defense can be aggressive in pockets because of their personnel, because of the continuity they have on defense, and just generally how they're coached and disciplined on the defensive end. So you take a team like Chicago, or you can even compare it to if they're going against a team like New York or Vegas or Phoenix that has guards that shoot the 3 ball fairly well, that usually get a certain type of attention. They won't just concede double teams. They just won't concede even like half double teams to opponents. They err on individual defense and keeping themselves out of rotation as much as possible. They want to put themselves in a position to where they're forcing an offense to play a style of play that they want them to play, meaning taking away the ball movement from you, meaning that there's going to be more one-on-one play. And if that's also a one-on-one play that's also forcing you to spend time in what we call deep water late in the shot clock, all of those things work in the favor of a defense. Now you extrapolate that, copy and paste it across multiple possessions, and you see why they were a team that was within one bad call of winning the entire thing last season, in a situation where most people didn't expect them to have a prolific playoff showing, yet alone be a team that could kind of go toe-to-toe with anybody else in the league. Bringing that back to the Chicago Sky, 12 assists in this one, tied for the second lowest mark this season. That's not by happenstance. I think some of that is by way of because of how Minnesota defends. With Rachel Banham, you talk about running plays for her. It gets hard against a team like Minnesota, and when you talk about the Sky playing Minnesota pretty much exclusively the last 2 weeks, you get a specific style of diet or a defense you're going up against. And most teams can't replicate that. It's very unique. But the fact that they can defend the way that they do, certain situations where they can switch, that takes away some of the movement that ultimately creates clean shot quality and looks for Rachel Banham. Now, the other portion of that, if we talk about them only having 12 turnovers, playing a lot of one-on-one basketball, not getting the types of paint touches that usually put a defense in rotation when the Sky offense is at its best. If you take all of those things off the table, Rachel Banham wants to get in the dribble handoffs. If those are just being switched, she just has to create off the dribble. And if you're talking about her having to create off the dribble, she can do it. She's a tough shot taker. That's not her best quality. Mm-hmm. That's also taking the rest of the offense out of its rhythm. In addition to that, if you have a team that is taking away the paint touches that the Sky usually enjoy more than any other team in the league, that's also taking away her quality of catch and shoot threes. So if you're taking away the movement and the catch and shoot threes, you got to create your offense from somewhere. And if they're also not double teaming Angel and Kamilla in the paint, now you see why the Minnesota Lynx defense is so great. And also why it's just so hard to go up against them, especially if you're playing them almost like a playoff series over the last 2 weeks. So I don't want to overreact to their offense outside of the turnovers, like the assist part. I don't want to overreact to the lack of flow and the lack of movement too much, because I understand that most teams can't replicate the things that Minnesota does defensively. However, you can also learn from these situations where you're going up against a defensive demon type of team, top 2 in the league by my eye, with Minnesota. So lessons learned. Quita, you got thoughts on Minnesota's defense, the lack of ball movement on the Sky side of things before we kind of transition to speaking to the Skyscrapers and those struggles that they had in this one?
I mean, I think you said it. The Minnesota Lynx they're an elite defensive team for a reason. One, they have the reigning defensive player of the year in Nafisa Collier. Two, they have one of the most, in my opinion, underrated post defenders.
Talk about it.
Like Alana Smith, yes, Nafisa is fan-freaking-tastic. She's great. However, Nafisa's not doing it by herself. You have Alana Smith, who, yes, you may see Alana Smith and you may be like, oh, I can do some stuff against her. No, you can't. No, you can't. Alana Smith is going to block your shot. And even when she's not blocking your shot, she is going to play some tough nose defense on you. And she's one of those players that I don't think gets the respect that she deserves at all. So yes, you have Nafisa, you have Alana, you also have the guards for Minnesota, who, yes, there's some great shot takers, right? Kayla McBride, great shot taker, right? You got BC, Bridget Carlton, you got Courtney Williams, the mid-range assassin. The thing that some people forget is that these guards, not only can they score, they can sit down on you and play some defense as well. Now, are they as elite as their post players? No, in my opinion, not. However, when it comes to playing consistent defense without fouling as a guard, they're some of the best in the W. And again, that's something that also doesn't get talked about that much because they're just able to sit down on defense, not do anything stupid on defense, and basically make you mess yourself up on when you're playing against them. And so really good defensive team by the Minnesota Lynx, but a team that, besides Nafisa Collier, doesn't necessarily get the individual respect that they deserve from a defensive standpoint.
Correct. And to your point, before we get to this quick break, I mentioned talking to Cheryl Reeve a couple weeks ago. In that same press conference, she was asked about the defense in a light different from the question that I asked. And her response was that Nafisa is a great defender, but Alana Smith is their defensive anchor. Mind you, you just brought up the context of Nafisa being the reigning defensive player of the year. What does that say about Alana Smith?
She's right up there. I mean, honestly. And again, because of the star power of Nafisa, I think people are willfully ignoring the stuff that they're literally seeing on the court from Alana Smith. And that's unfortunate. But yeah, when you're going against Minnesota it's not just Nafisa, y'all. It's Atlanta Smith that is a juggernaut to deal with on a defensive end.
Yeah, and I think the guards are very comfortable defending on the perimeter, knowing that if they do get beat, and if they happen to,
you got two people that's going to take care of business.
Exactly. You got to worry about fee, and then you got to worry about big land, and that leads to kind of the next topic that we're getting to, which is speaking to Angel and Camilla's performances from today. So let's go ahead and get to a quick ad break, the final ad break of this pod, and then we'll get back to kind of cap things off for you all. All right, Quita, I got two more things I want to tell you about on today's episode. So, Shady Rays, just generally speaking for everybody, you know that moment, the one where you realize you left your favorite sunglasses at the beach or on the roof of your car or at the gas station 3 states away? We've all been there. Just to say, Shady Rays, being able to have the types of insurance that they're able to provide for you. If you break them, they're willing to replace them. If you lose them, they're also willing to replace them. Having that kind of comfortability to where if you aren't the most sure-handed, not indifferent to how the Chicago Sky were in tonight's game with the turnovers, having somebody that can back you up in the ways that Shady Rays will and consistently does gives you peace of mind. And that peace of mind is something that you simply cannot put a value on. And here's also the wild part. If you break them, in addition to losing them, even in one day, Shady Ray is willing to send you a brand new pair, no guilt trip, just replacements. So now I actually wear my sunglasses without fear on hikes, at concerts, on a boat, playing basketball if you choose, if you play baseball if you choose. Shady Rays literally and figuratively has your back. And I want to also close with the fact that we over here at All City and specifically with CHGO have teamed up with Shady Rays to bring you an exclusive offer. Head to shadyrays.com, and use code CHGO for 35% off of polarized sunglasses. Again, CHGO, enter that promo code for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try them on for yourself, rated 5 stars, and they're also rated by 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Quita, I also want to tell you about Four Seasons. So everybody knows what Four Seasons is, but I'm here to tell you a little bit more about it. So nobody likes being hot. No one also likes being sweaty. No one also likes being sticky, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You want to also I just want to kind of discuss with you all how awful it is and also how great it is to be nice inside if you have adequate types of air conditioning to kind of cool things off. Obviously, summertime is not even going to be here before we know it because we're quite literally in the middle of it. And if you're like me over here, it's significantly hotter. You're living in the oven. One thing you need is for your home's air conditioning to be completely up for the challenge. You need Four Seasons. 4 seasons for whether it's the wintertime in Chicago, we know how that gets to be for your heating, whether it's obviously for the summertime and your air conditioning, whether it's for your plumbing, whether it's for your electricity. 4 Seasons has been serving the Chicagoland area for over 50 years. Now is the time to get your air conditioning checked out considering it's summertime, and 4 Seasons has experts that are ready to help you with your AC installation or maintenance or repair. 2024 was officially the hottest summer for Chicago in terms of record. The heat index even reached 114 degrees last summer at O'Hare. Last summer was very uncomfortable. Again, like I mentioned in the opening, very sticky, significantly hot days across multiple days where the humidity, in addition to the heat, is just bearing down on you. Like I also mentioned, no one likes to be sweaty, sticky, et cetera, et cetera. If you have your air conditioning right, if you have it fixed, if you have it just simply installed, if you need something new, Four Seasons has it for you. You can also do little things like schedule for your Four Seasons AC tune-up literally today and do so and save $50 and also enjoy a 1-year no breakdown guarantee. You got to make sure you support things like that because you're not backed by companies in that way by other types of services that do provide what Four Seasons does. This is exactly what makes them unique, whether it's plumbing, whether it's your electrical, whether it's your heating or a cooling emergency. Even if you need a hot water tank or a generator, all you have to do is call Four Seasons with same day installation and no extra charge for nights, weekends, or holidays. Call 866-4-SEASONS. And I think by the time I said that, that probably triggered a memory for everybody that lives in the Midwest area. I also want to make sure to mention that they're your trusted local experts at Four Seasons for heating, air conditioning, plumbing, and electricity. You also want to make sure you visit Four Seasons Heating Cooling.com. Again, Four Seasons Heating Cooling.com for all of the special offers as well as money saving coupons. That's Four Seasons Heating Cooling.com.
Steven, your ad read triggered a memory for me.
Yes.
A couple years ago when it was dead of winter, very, very cold, and my heat went out, and who did I call? Four Seasons. And they came and got my stuff fixed. So I am very, very, very familiar with Four Seasons. I can absolutely recommend them. And also, you mentioned Shady Rays. My favorite part about Shady Rays is that they have prescription sunglasses. Okay, so I always gotta say that for the people who are like me and cannot see. Don't worry, you can still get your sunglasses as well because Shady Rays has prescription.
Again, both are very extremely essential. Mm-hmm. Those are non-negotiable. So shout out Shady Rays, shout out Four Seasons. Again, when I mentioned the phone number, it triggered the memory for me again, and I'm sure I wasn't alone on that. For all the right reasons, call 866-4-SEASONS. But we go ahead and get back to the game to kind of close this episode out. Again, if you're here and you've been rocking with us this whole time, we appreciate y'all. Before we get to the rest of the game, though, I also want to piggyback off of the Atlanta Smith point, though. And just kind of quickly note that for anybody that's been rocking with us for the last handful of years, you know how much I love and appreciate and have tried to detail and kind of informing the masses just how great Atlanta Smith is on the defensive end in particular, but just generally speaking. She's a player that was playing the 4 for the Chicago Sky when she was here in 2023. Since then, she spent a little bit of time at the 5 with the Sky. Those minutes weren't the best with that team, but that team context is not the same defensively, especially as the team that she's playing with the Minnesota Lynx. So she goes from the Sky in 2023, where she had a career best season in multiple respects, to 2024, following up a career best season with another career best season, one that nets them, like I mentioned, within one bad call of literally winning the entire season with the championship against the New York Liberty. So now in 2025, not necessarily season best rates that she's playing at. The defense is somehow, some way better than it was in 2023 and in 2024. I mentioned Angel Reese saying that she is their defensive anchor. She just understands the little things about defense. Not always loud box score type of numbers that she's accumulating in terms of blocks and steals, though when you combine those two, she is always and consistently one of the best with stocks and deflections in the entire W. She just understands help as an anchor, as a presence around the paint or the rim. You think about Angel Reese, I've talked about her drives being something that's been some of the best in the entire W over this last 2.5 to 3 weeks. That doesn't necessarily copy and paste against the Minnesota Lynx, obviously because they have rated defensive player of the year, Napheesa Collier, who's typically guarding Angel. However, I will say, though, Angel has gotten the best of Fee in multiple one-on-one situations where she has a live dribble, whether she's using that in and out into a pull-up, using it in and out to get downhill and turn a corner, or just generally kind of playing off of her footwork around the paint. The issue is, where Angel would get past her one-on-one matchup and be able to either get to the free throw line, score, or do both, when Big Land is just kind of roaming around the paint, that help is on time. It gives you an extra body to think about, and it also puts some pressure on you as well. So I want to shout out Big Land for that. I'll go ahead and say it. She's the 1B to Alyssa Thomas's 1A in terms of defensive player of the year for me so far this season. And I know there are other players that will certainly be putting their names in that race as well. Naturally, Napheesa Collier is literally right there at number 2 for me. Obviously, 2/3 of 1A, 1B, and the number 2 in the league are in that DPOY race for me. But Big Land is right there in the mix with the 2 best defenders in the entire W this season so far.
I mean, Atlanta Smith is great. And I got to say, I continue to be very sad about the fact that both Atlanta Smith and Courtney Williams basically had like career altering seasons with the Chicago Sky. where Courtney Williams was seen as a actual point guard, and even though she doesn't necessarily like that term, being the point guard, but she really went into that and honed that skill with the Chicago Sky. And Alana Smith, someone who was in and out of the league, couldn't really find a real rotation spots in the WNBA, had a fantastic season with the Chicago Sky. They both leave and go to Minnesota, and they in the finals. They doing the big one. They won a Commissioner's Cup championship last year. And like, I'm just like, man, these when players leave the Chicago Sky, man, they have a lot of success. I just had to say that as a longtime Sky fan, it's always kind of like, oh, why couldn't you stay? I understand why they left. It makes sense. I would have done the same thing if I were them. But as a fan, still kind of bummed about it.
Yeah, that's tough. All right, kind of get to the last two that we want to speak to, and then we'll kind of do some isolation thoughts if we have any before we close out. We mentioned it at the top. We dove into it a little bit. Want to revisit it one last time before we kind of get out of here. Angel and Kamilla are the heartbeat of the team. That doesn't come as a surprise to anybody. When those two are on their P's and Q's, the team typically does well. If not winning games, they're right there neck and neck, contending with teams that are in the contending realm of the W and pushing them to their absolute brink. That's something we've seen them do against this very Minnesota Lynx team within the last 2 weeks and multiple times this month because they've gone against each other so many times. But also, even going back to last season, we saw them have the back and forths with Minnesota, as well as teams like the New York Liberty and the Las Vegas Aces. This team is one that, when they're playing at their best, starting with their two blue chip pieces, it sets a tone that everybody else can kind of pick up off of, and it allows for a game to be played on their terms. One thing that consistently resides with teams that have success, whether it be in kind of anomaly scenarios or teams in a sustained manner that win, rebounding the basketball. Angel and Kamilla are two of the best rebounders in the W. Angel, in particular, in terms of rebound rate, is the best ever. And she continues to find ways to maintain and also add layers to how well she rebounds, both on the offensive glass and generally speaking with the rebounds. However, there are demands on this team this season, some of it because of injury, but also because of the need for their skill development to hit and sustain in a consistent manner, to where they have to find impact past just on the glass. Now, with Angel, we talked about the turnovers in today's game, and I'll go back to the box score just to make sure that we speak accurately on it. She did have 9 turnovers in this one. And for full context, Minnesota had 8 as a team in this one. I didn't get a chance to participate in post game, but I imagine if Angel was one of the athletes that was available, no different than she has at every single point this season, especially early on, she'll start with accountability of herself. And before she dives into anything else, she probably mentions that we simply can't be our best selves if I have 9 turnovers. There's not much else to talk about with this game. If I'm speaking as Angel, she's probably saying this to everybody. If I have 9 turnovers, there's nothing else to talk about. I don't care if someone went 0 for 10 from 3. I don't care if someone was in foul trouble. If I have 9 turnovers or someone that has the ball as much as she does, she's probably going to say they won't win much, if not any of those games. And that would be very true. That's also exactly what you want to hear from your franchise player, from your kind of leader in a spiritual and energy sense. You want them to set the tone with accountability for everybody else to pick up the baton off of. With Angel, though, outside of just the 9 turnovers, this was a tough game for her. Some of it because of the help that I talked about with Atlanta. Some of it was because of the primary defender that she sees when she goes up against Minnesota in Nafisa Collier. She did have 11 points on 4 of 8 from the field. Got to the free throw line 4 times in addition to that. You want to see her take, obviously, more shots than 8. You want her to be, if not leading the team in free field goal attempts, at 15 or more, and as close to 50% on those attempts as possible, getting to about 15, 20, 22-ish points within all of that. Obviously, she wasn't there in this game. This was a game that is certainly a learning lesson for her. And I feel like if she's able to break the rhythm of some of the pockets where the turnovers did occur, she's able to find offense. Yeah. And I'll go ahead and kick it to you on that one, speaking to Angel.
Yeah, playing against a player like Nafisa, sure, is some of Angel's numbers going to suffer because of that? Yeah, sure. Like again, She almost had a triple-double, and not a good triple-double at all. Not a good triple-double. However, when I continue to think about how Angel has improved from a field goal percentage, just from last year to this year, and even from the beginning of the season to now, we see improvement. And the thing that I did like about today's game is that even though she was frustrated thinking that she got some fouls down low that were not called, we saw her trying to get to the rim, right? We saw her just kind of bulldoze her way to the rim and still be fairly efficient at that. Now, the thing that was not really available for her today because of who she was playing up against, but will be available against other teams, is that ability to get opportunities at the nail for a mid-range jumper, right? To possibly get some opportunities sort of closer towards the three-point line. Now, of course, against a defender like Nafisa was not allowing that today. She was not allowing that, and that's very understandable. So Angel was trying to get what she could get, which is basically get into the basket and trying to bully ball her way into scoring. But as we go into Thursday's game, as we go into the other games for the remainder of the season, I want to see more of mid-range Angel, because we have seen her have some success on that this year, but it really just depends on the personnel she's playing up against. And against Nafisa, you can get her every now and then, absolutely, but the mid-range shots are few and far between against a team like Minnesota. But I did like Angel's aggressiveness early on. I just think that as the game went on, it seemed like she could just kind of get frustrated, and it just compounded into more and more and more mistakes. And that aggressiveness did kind of wane as the game went on. But in the first half, we definitely saw it there. And that's definitely what we need to see going forward, but more opportunities for the mid-range and less of a compounding of those frustrations as the game goes on.
I think you said that well, and you talked about things kind of weighing on Angel in particular. That again that's the blueprint for the Minnesota's defense. Mm-hmm. You can make the right play a couple times. Are you going to be willing to and able to execute making the right play time and time and time again? Because like we talked about, they had Nafisa Collier and Big Land, Alana Smith floating around in the paint, if not defending her individually. You're going to have to deal with the individual matchup and the help. It's not just one or the other. It's always going to be both. And sometimes you might expend so much energy getting past the initial matchup that by the time the help comes, the ball might not be in your hands cleanly. If you try to make a pass, they're great with their hands and getting deflections and putting pressure on you and just kind of forcing you to be uncomfortable. That is the blueprint. That's why Minnesota is a championship caliber team with their defense. But to that point, though, early on in the game, in the first quarter and the second quarter, there are two passes, both of which resulted in Angel Reese assist to Kamilla Cardoso that stand out to me. The first quarter, you talked about a lot about Angel's drives. These are both driving scenarios with her. It's a grab and go where she grabs the board, brings it down the left side of the court. They try to set screens for her, but the pressure on the people that are trying to set the screens, the smalls, I think it was Kia and Rachel Banham, too much pressure, so they just float away, re-space. Angel ends up driving. She has the matchup with Atlanta because it's a transition secondary type of break. She ends up getting an initial turn around the corner, but she doesn't get a blow-by, so Atlanta is still kind of attached to her hip. What Angel does, she gets to a little below the free throw line, picks up her dribble after she sees that Nafisa Collier is kind of the low defender, showing that help that we just got done speaking to. And because she kind of gets double teamed in a soft sense, that puts two people open on the backside. I think one was Rachel Banham, who was one pass away. Kayla McBride is guarding her. And then Nafisa was guarding Kamilla Cardoso on a baseline. Kamilla cuts as Nafisa Collier goes to send a double team at Angel. And now Kayla McBride has to play two. What Angel does, which is a credit to her growth as a playmaker, she doesn't just pick up the dribble without a plan. She picks up the dribble knowing that she has the attention of two defenders, pivots to a space where she can make a pass, and what she does with her eyes puts Kayla McBride in compromise because, like I said, she's guarding one of the best three-point shooters in the league, wide open on the wing, and Kamilla Cardoso, one of the best players in the paint. You can't be right if you manipulate the situation the right way. And Angel's court mapping plays with her eyes to move McBride, dump off pass to Kamilla. She gets a wide open layup. And then in the second quarter, there was another situation similar to it. She gets a drive. It's not a true drive because she kind of gets attached to the hip from Nafisa this time. Atlanta brings help, and she's just patient and engaging on a second drive, keeps that attention, and then just, again, dumps it off to Kamilla, and she hits a midi. It's those little things with Angel where you see the playmaking growth, but now it's about the stamina, the mental stamina to keep it efficient. That's where you ascend from being a post player that can do things with skill to being someone that's in that Alyssa Thomas type of range where you can do it all game and you might not have more than 2 or 3 turnovers and your offense is just clicking and you're unstoppable and it's just a machine.
Yeah. But I see the vision for that being the future for Angel because she has it. She has it. She has that innate ability to see the court and make the right reads. However, it's just sometimes turnovers compound and fatigue is a thing. And also got to note that, like, you know, Angel is the only player on the Chicago Sky that was at All-Star, right? She is probably the most exhausted player on this team right now. And so, like, that's also something to note with her 9 turnovers. Yeah, that's not good. Absolutely. But also, you know, as fatigue becomes a factor, it's figuring out, okay, I know I'm tired, so let me not complicate things too much. And let's hold off on some ideas that I may have, whether that's me driving to the basket and then getting traveling, or whether it's me trying to set a screen and get an offensive call. It, you know what I'm saying? Like there's some stuff that, like, there's a recognition of where she's at and limiting those mistakes. But, like, the vision is there. The ideas are there. I enjoy watching Angel's passes this year, her assists. Like, they've been really good. It's just, there's just a little bit more refining that needs to be done with her game. And, you know, that's something that she willingly admits, and that's something that will come over time. But when it comes, Steven, it's going to be very glorious to see. I'm telling you.
Yeah. Breaking news for everybody. A second-year player has room for growth, room for improvement. Shocker. Not at all. That's why I'm not worried. Obviously, you want to make sure you note it and note that there is certainly room for improvement in certain situations. We talked about the stamina part of it, not in the literal having the energy to do it, but having the energy to make the right reads time and time and time again against great types of defenses, especially from the individual matchup standpoint that you have in reigning defensive player of the year, Nafisa Collier, as well as obviously Atlanta Smith. Once she gets to that point, and it's once she gets, because she's going to get there, we've already seen it in multiple flashes, it's going to be a problem. But again, if we're talking about things being a process and skill development not being something that is just going to happen overnight, it takes these type of 9 turnover performances for her to go back and watch the film, but also process and bookmark in real time to learn from. Unfortunately, it has to come with not having any of her primary guards that she initially was expecting to start the season with in the lineup with her, obviously with Ariel Atkins being out, as well as even more so Courtney Vandersloot. But where challenges are presented, opportunity is also presented. And needless to say, she's someone that's completely stepped into that, and she's done extremely well with it. So we can acknowledge that she's within that process, acknowledge the faults of tonight, but also not ignore that this is a step in the process. You can't get to being Alyssa Thomas-esque in your own right without having some lumps in that process to learn from. And that's kind of where she is now. And I feel like the second half of this season is going to present her with plenty more opportunities to be in the same situation, but show that growth and kind of go against the grain and not allow for herself to compound the turnovers in the ways that it happened tonight. But real quick to kind of round things out, did you have anything else on Angel, or are you good to go?
No, you covered it.
Okay, going to Kamilla. The fouls. Start there. Go ahead.
Yeah, fouls tend to be an issue for big post players like a Camilla Cardoso, meaning a post player that really is basically a back to the basket type of post player. We're seeing nowadays, we see a lot of like centers who are very comfortable around the perimeter. They're very comfortable with smaller guards defending them and whatnot. Kamilla's not, and so we see times when you're going against a post player and you foul them. Okay, that's all fine and dandy. But we also see times where I believe there was one foul that she had where I believe it might have been on transition where Courtney Williams was shooting a jump shot and Kamilla went out to contest and then contested a little bit too much and then ended up fouling Courtney. And the thing is, those types of fouls, I wish, and we've seen that quite a bit this year. And what I wish is what happened is for the Chicago Sky coaching staff to just say, Kamilla, when you have to go out on a guard, don't jump. Don't even jump. Do not jump. Just stand there, because you cannot continue to have Kamilla get in foul trouble and get fouls that aren't worth anything. A post player fouling a guard. No, I want if you're going to get a foul, you need to be fouling Nafisa or Atlanta, not Courtney Williams, right? Like that's just not a good look. Now, your guards were not there. They were not there to take Courtney Williams. You're there, but don't actually contest that. Just put your hand up. That's it. Don't jump. Don't do anything, because you're going to foul. And I wish that, that would be the instruction for Kamilla going forward, because it's going to continue to happen because Kamilla isn't that type of post player that is comfortable with going out there without fouling. She's going to foul. So just tell her, hey, go out there. Sure, stand there. Put your hand straight up, and that's it. Don't jump. Don't do nothing. Don't worry about trying to block it, because you're most likely not, and you're most likely going to get the foul. So that's my take on Kamilla. Fouling post players, cool. Fouling guards, never. Don't do it.
Yeah, it's the discernment part with me for Kamilla. Yes, she is a player that I feel like is going to be heavily contentious in defensive player of the year races. Maybe as soon as next season and going forward throughout the rest of her career, because that's the type of potential that she has on that end. But I don't think she gets to that level as soon as she possibly can without that discernment piece that I'm speaking to. Now, the foul on Courtney Williams that you brought up is an example of it, but there are other instances where sometimes she's a little bit too handsy, or sometimes she's putting a little bit too much body contact on players around the rim that sends them off balance. And because Kamilla typically has the size advantage on opponents, any slight bit of contact is probably going to look exaggerated to the natural eye of an official, which is going to leave her succumb to fouls, which I wish she got some of those calls on the other end of the court too, because that would certainly help. And she certainly suggests the type of contact that she gets, because people know if you don't touch her, she's going to finish. So you would hope that she gets the same whistle that she gets called for on the other end. But to keep it on track with the defense before we get to the offense real quick, you just want to see her be better with the little disciplined moments. You don't always have to reach. Sometimes because you're 6'7", you can just put your hands in the air, and that's going to be enough to do the job. If someone scores and it's a tough bucket is what it is. That's what you want opponents taking anyway. You don't want to do too much to compromise yourself and take yourself away from your team. But to the offensive end, she has to be better. But as I've said all season long, she can only be, because she's not Angel that can go and do things on her own to create for herself. She can't dribble herself into the post. She can't just play one-on-one like that. Guard play has to set her up for success. And when her game process isn't good, when the guards aren't creating because of the switching and the pressure, like I talked about with Minnesota, if she does happen to get it, how clean is it? Is it an intentful touch that she's getting? And how much does she have to create for herself before trying to score? If you look at today's game, she had to do a lot more creation outside of just getting a pass that immediately led to a bucket. And that's kind of the uneven results that you get from her on offense.
Yeah, for sure. Guard play has to be better. And also her angles need to be better.
Yeah. Sure.
It's it's one of those things where like, and yes, gotta have a caveat that yes, is she getting fouled and they're not, and the referees are not calling it? Yes, that is true. However, because Kamilla has the size advantage against most players she plays against, she's for the most part not gonna get those calls. So so you just have to acknowledge that and say, you know what, I need to really work on my angle. So even though I get hit on the arm, I'm still able to finish the shot and make the bucket because I know I'm not getting the foul. I'm not getting to the free throw line. So I need to make this shot or else it's a field goal miss for me. Right. And so like angles are absolutely something that she has to work on. But also, yes, guard play set her up for the most success. But in my opinion, the best passer, well, besides like Courtney Vandersloot, but the best passer is Angel to Kamilla. And so that is going to continue to go and work wonders. But yes, for sure the guards need to be better. But I don't see that changing a ton this year. I do think her working on her angles will help her, and the realization that you're not going to get fouled. So just don't complain. Just play through it because it's not coming. Like it's just not, and that's unfortunate, but it is what it is.
Yeah, to your point, 18 assists from Angel to Kamilla, where Camilla's finishing from passes from Angel. That's about 6 more than second place on the Sky. Needless to say, Angel finds opportunity to pass it to Kamilla more than she does to anybody else. That's not unintentional. She understands the advantage that her fellow front court teammate is, and I think that them finding more creative ways to find an opportunity to get it to Kamilla and getting the pass there efficiently and effectively is important to note too. But that's all we got for today's post-game episode of CHGO Sky. We appreciate everybody that tapped in. If you did not already, make sure you leave a like for us. Leave a like for Quita. You can find her on Twitter at Quita Loves Sports. That's Quita Loves Sports. Quita, you got anything you want to plug before we get out of here?
Check me out on YouTube. Have a morning show called Quita in the Morning. So check that out. It's really awesome. We're gonna we're gonna recap all the games that happened today, not just the Sky game. Well, actually, we probably won't cover the Sky game because we just did that here. But all the other games, the other 4 games that happened tonight, we're gonna go through them tomorrow. So make sure to tap in there.
For sure. As we close, I'm about to tap in with Vegas and Atlanta.
Yes.
Ahead of Atlanta and Phoenix going into tomorrow night. So you can follow me on Twitter at StephenPG3. You can also follow our CHGO Sky account on Twitter as well at CHGO_Sky. That's CHGO_Sky. And we'll be talking to you all again soon, having updates from pressers, as well as any other news that comes out regarding Chicago Sky. So tap in with us. We'll talk to you all again soon, probably sometime early next week. And until then, be safe, enjoy yourself, and take some time to touch grass and just take a breather, because this is basketball and it's supposed to be an outlet for us all. So take that time for yourself. Don't get too caught up in discourse online, and we will talk to you all again soon.
We all silly like the mayor. We all silly like the mayor.